Hey guys, Phil Tomato here, back again with another video, and this time I'm going to take you through the process of how I created this piece. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. Now there are some people out there who don't agree with using 3D assets to help you compose the scene, but I disagree. I feel like using 3D assets can actually help you compose stuff, and I think it's no different than using a ruler. So use every tool to your advantage, I always say. So, you might be wondering what software I'm using. Well, I'm using Clip Studio Paint. Now, I'm not endorsed by Clip Studio Paint or anything. I'm just saying that they have got a bunch of tools that I am in love with that really improve the way I draw and really streamline my process. Now, if you look at the drawing that I made, I'm not actually tracing over the 3D assets. I'm just actually using it as a base to figure out where the character sits in the 3D plane. It makes it easier to determine what size they are, because sometimes I can draw them very big or very small if I'm not too careful, and it completely ruins the perspective. So it actually helps out quite a lot if I have a 3D asset to work with. At this point of the process, I was working with Frankie Foster. Now, right now, it doesn't really look like her because I kind of want to give her a different hairstyle. I wanted to give her like the signature Frankie hair, but I opted for like the hair bun. I feel like it worked quite great. At this point, I was still trying to figure out which characters I put in, so starting off with Frankie Foster would be a good bet. I needed to have a good focal point, something that will guide the people's eyes towards the most important things, so I opted for having Eustace play a very important role. Having an interesting model when it comes to like a painting class is very, very important, so I guess I turned Eustace into Father Time. I wanted to make him look heroic, and also I wanted to censor his important bits, so having Johnny hold up a pencil as if he was measuring something made for a good censor block. Painting from reality can teach you a lot of things that painting from reference you find online can't. There are certain nuances of colors that you find IRL that you won't get from your computer screen. It's very subtle, but it can make your paintings look really good. It elevates it. I highly recommend doing it if you got the time. Eustace is coming along great. Having him step on Grimm felt right for some reason. Almost as if he stole Grimm's scythe and is standing heroically over him, like he conquered death or whatever. Finally figuring out how his pose would look like is a huge relief. I spend more time trying to figure out the pose than actually polishing the characters in the painting. Having a cohesive story going on in the painting that I'm doing is almost, if not more important than how beautifully it's rendered, because people react more to the story that's going on in the painting rather than how amazingly it's painted. If you see Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, everyone in the painting is either doing something or interacting with someone. Being an amazing painter is good, but a great painter knows how to tell a story based on what he draws. This takes time to learn and to master. I myself am still learning how to weave a story in my paintings. In fact, I only recently applied it to my drawings. Before, I just drew characters just standing there. Although they were okay, but they were missing a story element. Once I started applying story to my paintings, everything just made sense. Having characters play off of one another made the drawings feel alive, like they're more believable and more relatable. I highly recommend you start applying some story element to your next painting. Instead of having the characters just standing there, having them interact with something or someone will elevate your art. This will add an extra level of difficulty in your art for sure, but trust me, this will benefit you in the long run if you apply it. I had to put Jack somewhere in this painting. I just love drawing Jack and Johnny as bros and are experiencing life just like the rest of us. If there was someone who needed a day to just relax and paint, it would be Jack. After all the things he went through, he could use a day or two. Also, started working on Mojo Jojo, making him write prompts in the painting class instead of drawing just like the rest of the characters. I usually go back and forth in my paintings. Trying to flesh out the form shadows in certain areas will make the characters or the things I'm working on look more three-dimensional. Just a quick recap of the things you need to take into account. There are two types of shadows, form shadows, and cast shadows. Form shadows help shape the object you're painting on. Cast shadows are the shadows being created by an object, and it can help feel like they belong in the painting. Without form shadows, it's difficult to get a sense of the object three-dimensionally. Without cast shadows, your drawing makes it feel like your drawing is in outer space, floating in outer space. So start a habit of minding the shadows whenever you paint. Creating a piece with a lot of characters can be very difficult. Drawing one character is difficult enough, but drawing multiple characters can be very complicated. Plopping down a lot of characters won't make the drawing much better. You gotta know where to place the characters optimally. Otherwise, they'll just be noise in your piece and can oftentimes be detrimental to your work. It makes it look cluttered. My advice would be to do some thumbnailing. I do this quite a lot. If you don't know what thumbnailing is, it's the process of drawing thumb-sized versions of your work to make it easier for you down the road when you're creating the drawing. Never settle for the first draft. I find a lot of artists have this problem where they polish their first draft. Ever drew something and it just doesn't feel right from start to finish? Well, your gut isn't wrong. So in order to prevent mistakes like this in the future where it feels like polishing a turd, do some studies. Create thumbnails. This will save you a whole lot of headaches in the future. Now that I've got some characters in, I'm moving on to the lighting of the space the characters are at. This will help me establish the amount of lighting I need to apply to certain areas to the piece. While I'm doing this, I'm also polishing up Mojo Jojo over here. Having a nice character in the foreground can help explain how close or how far objects are in your work. As long as you've got foreground characters playing around with background characters, you'll make the composition wider. Characters in the foreground tend to be more darker than the characters in the background. The farther away objects or characters are in your painting, the lighter they become. But if the background is darker, they too become much darker. I guess it's all a matter of what's going on with the piece that you're creating. I never really know what the final outcome of my paintings would be. Sometimes I would spend hours creating something and then completely scrap it a couple of hours in when I think it doesn't work. I feel like it's important to be okay scrapping things in your work when it doesn't work. You feel me? In this part of the painting process, I'm slowly refining and adding in the details. Adding and removing elements is usually what I do because I can never really make up my mind with my paintings. Once I finally settle on the composition and the elements that I like, it's off to polishing certain elements that I'm happy with. Remember, just because you're polished a particular part of the painting doesn't mean it should be final. Remember what I said about not being married to the first draft? It's always a good idea to follow your gut. Oftentimes, your gut is right. If things don't feel right, odds are there's probably something wrong with it. But Phil, what if I feel like that all the time? Don't worry. The better you'll get at drawing, the easier things will get. Play around with your drawings. Everything can always be improved. For me, it's important to add the details when you're close to finishing the drawing. Pushing for details when you're not quite sure where the drawing will go is a recipe for disaster. Keep it loose when you're working on the painting and add the finishing touches at the final moments of the painting. Becoming better at art is a long process which can take a lifetime to do. But if you do it every day, you get better at it. Sometimes I wish life had an XP meter where you could see your progress. Maybe that way it can make you stick to your drawing. But life isn't like that, sadly. We level up, sure, but we're so zoned in on what's in front of us that we seldom see the bigger picture. You're improving. Trust me on this. You just don't see yourself level up as clearly as you see it in video games, but oh, you're improving. Becoming great requires patience, and trust me, you'll get there. I know learning art can be difficult. Oftentimes, it's very frustrating, especially when you're just starting off. If things get complicated, I always tell the viewers over on my Twitch streams to start small. Draw smaller and more often. I've seen so many artists who fizzle and burn out because they keep drawing really big and complicated pieces. Sometimes they can't even finish it. And when they do, they burn out and take months off just to recover from the piece that they're drawing. Slow and steady wins the race. Creating art is a long game endeavor. So let me ask you this. Are you okay with drawing for a while? Sitting down, honing your craft day in and day out without being rewarded for a while? Are you okay with people not liking your drawing for a while? If the answer is yes, then you're on track to becoming one of the greatest artists in this generation, if you work hard enough, that is. If not, then that's okay too. This is your journey, and you go about it however way you want. While I was working with this drawing, it made me realize how far I've come. Seeing how my anatomy got so much better makes me so proud and happy. How I render the colors improved as well. I remember how I used to paint my colors and it just made me wince every time I see my old art. I'm sure in the future, as long as I keep drawing, I'm going to look back at this drawing and wince at how I made this. But for now, this painting that I'm doing is a compilation of everything I've learned throughout my artistic career. It's not perfect, and I know it could be better, but I'm really proud of how far I've come. I just want to share this feeling to everyone and let them know how addicting this feeling is. It's the feeling of accomplishment, of improvement. At this part of the drawing, I'm slowly adding the final touches, improving on what I already have and tweaking the background color to suit the mood that I'm trying to show the viewer. Making sure the colors don't overpower each other but play off of one another. Adding a few things here and there to make the drawing look more interesting. Also adding a few Easter eggs here and there is something that I'd like to do on my drawings. If you ever come across one of my drawings in the wild, aka social media, drop a comment and say hello. If you ever want to say hello to me, you can do that. I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I hope to see you there someday. Being an artist can be very lonely because we stay at our house and draw most of the time. That's why I'm inviting you to drop by every once in a while. If you ever need a drawing buddy, odds are I'll be online over on Twitch and we can draw together. It's definitely a fun place to hang out, and I hope you give me a follow over there. If you ever made it this far in the video, I hope you support me by leaving a like and maybe a comment or two down at the bottom of the video. This truly helps me out quite a lot. Also, a huge thank you to my patrons over at Patreon who keep me fed every month. If you want to become one of my patrons and gain access to things that I only post on Patreon, as well as my previous drawings from months prior, there are hundreds of art that I create over there, and you can actually see my growth as an artist. Also, you can help vote on who I'll be drawing every week. Isn't that something? For the background of this art piece, I asked my community over on Twitch to create something Cartoon Network related, and everybody delivered amazingly. Did I mention that you should visit me on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays? I'm usually live during those times drawing something, and also play the occasional art games with the community. You should drop by and say hello. I always like hearing from other artists and what they're cooking up. It makes me work even harder, you know?